Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Back Five podcast. As usual, like Arsenal throughout the 2021-2022 season, we are one man down, but no problem though. The three people on the panel are definitely able to carry this show, and it's time to introduce them. Apollo, how are you, man? How's the 1 month been, and how's the season been? How's the break been so far? The 6 days without football.
Yeah, it's been a blessing because I've always tried to mix football with what I do on my personal channel with the TVs and movies. So
Yeah.
I've always struggled to balance between the two. So not having anything football related to talk about is a little bit of a blessing. We did stream the Champions League final last night. We had an absolute party for 3 hours. We enjoyed ourselves. No stress because Arsenal weren't playing. So it was fun all around. It was fun all around.
Nice seeing you again, Matt. How are you?
Hi guys. Hi. Yeah. Do you know what? I'm good. I've had a lovely weekend. Like you say, it's a bit strange not having the Arsenal to worry about and watch out for. So it's going to be an interesting summer. Obviously, lots of different things to keep an eye out for in terms of new signings and what's going to happen next season. So that's the excitement now. And the rumour mill started already that we can see. So that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plans out. But yeah, very, very strange at the moment. But like I say, we'll be keeping an eye out for news.
It's going to be a long 3 months ahead of transfer news and a lot of
100%.
rumors and a lot of this. You're going to buy that and that. So, Ray, how is it going?
Yeah, as you've all said, silly season is upon us. The rumors, we're going to be linked to a million players every day for the next 3 months. But I guess we must keep it all in balance here, right? Took about a week to percolate what happened in the season, especially toward the end, and put it all into context. But I'm sure we'll get into it right about now. And I want to welcome everybody for coming in, watching live, and those who are going to watch and play back.
Awesome, man. So we are going to be reviewing the 2021-2022 season. So as we go by, let us know in the comment section what you think about the topics we are going to be discussing. But first, simple question for you, Apollo. Did Arsenal overachieve or underachieve this season?
So this is a really twofold question because we all knew what was going on at the back end of last year. Our main guy who had done everything for us, Aubameyang, went into the can, barely had a good season, struggled with illness, his mother's illness as well. Going into it knowing that we'd had such a bad season, finished 8th again. So it was coming into this season was always going to be sort of a humble experience. It's like, how bad can things get and how good can these new players relate to? Every summer I do, and we all do as well here, we do a kind of assessment on what the transfer market was like. But because most of the players we bought was an unknown commodity, I said, for me, my grade was either a 5 or an 8. A 5 if these nobodies turned out to be nobodies, or an 8 if they were assimilated well into Arteta's system. So the summer transfer, those 6 players had a big say in what we did for our season. I predicted that we would finish 8th, and I sort of stood by that throughout the whole season, even when we were chasing down Chelsea in 3rd place. I still couldn't believe where we were because the squad, youngest squad in the team, most inexperienced manager, against the might of the Premiership, against, a well-drilled, well-oiled West Ham team with a good manager, Man United finishing 2nd and spending money on Ronaldo, Varane and Sancho. And so we had all this going on to be where we were. Look, man, I know it didn't end well, and this is a little bit like Game of Thrones, yeah? You forget the 8 years of how good the ride was, and then you sum it up in one all cluster mess. And we kind of forget getting there how good the journey was. So I think that for me, I think we did really well to finish 5th. I know, guys, you are going to say, but we had a 4-point lead with 3 games to go. I know all that's going to come out, but as a whole collective, I think that 5th place is probably about where the squad should have been, or lack of squad should have been. So I'm happy with where the season ended. Disappointed with 4th, I get it. But if we'd have finished 4th, I think we would have been ahead of our plan.
Awesome. Matt, how about you? Overachievement or underachievement?
Do you know what? Like what I said, I think we ended up where we probably should have been. I think at the beginning of the season, I know on the Arsenal Fan Circle podcast, we all kind of put our predictions in for where we all thought we would be, and no one, absolutely nobody, thought we would be, chasing down Chelsea or in with a chance of fourth. Absolutely nobody. To be sat at the end of the season disappointed at the fact we didn't get fourth, I think that says a huge amount about a very young squad, about how far they've come from the beginning of the season when we were pretty much written off by everybody and said, relegation fodder at that point, which is absolutely ridiculous after 3 games, but there we are. But we were written off at that point, and to come back over the course of the season to be pushing for fourth place, I think is a great achievement. It doesn't come without some disappointment because we absolutely could and really probably should have got fourth. But I think fifth place is a fantastic way to finish the season. I think I'd probably say that we've kind of met our objectives in terms of getting back into Europe. I think fourth was probably, like Apollo said, to be honest, I don't think we were ready for Champions League. I think we would have absolutely been probably battered around the park by some of these biggest. I mean, you look at the likes of Real Madrid, I would dread at this point going and playing them, at any serious part of a competition. And I think, yes, it's great for money. Yes, it's great for attracting new players. And it would have been great this summer to be able to say to a lot of these top stars that we would like to have been going after, to say we've got Champions League football. And that would help us attract new talent. But I think from a realistic footballing point of view, we're not ready for that. I think another year in the Europa League, especially with, cup competitions, the Premier League, we've got a lot on our hands. So I think really that fifth place has probably set us up ready so that next year we should be really pushing for fourth place. And that's where I think that's the more realistic thing for us to be pushing top 4 next season onwards. But it's going to be interesting how that impacts on our summer signings and our summer business and who will still want to come to the club. Whether that makes a massive difference or not, I don't know, but it's going to be really interesting to see. But I thought fifth was probably about right, I think.
Ray, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's going to be 3 for 3 here. I think we definitely overachieved. Listen, the club set out clearly and consciously at the start of the season to go young. Arteta's been there 2.5 years, but essentially he's had 2 different teams now. Out with the old and in with the new this season. So he's won things with the old guard. We have to say that gets swept under the rug. The new guard is in, and look at what happened in the last 12 months. David Luiz gone. Ben White comes in, young player from Brighton. Bellerin's on loan. Tomiyasu, a great find from Italy, comes in. And Ramsdale assumes the goalkeeper position after only the 4th game. As Apollo said, we had a horrible ending. The last chapter in our story was not great, but also the beginning chapter was terrible. So sandwiched in between all of that, I think there was a really, really good season there. And again, as was referenced, we have had striker issues all through the season. Whether that's foreseeable or not, I feel like Arteta dealt with the situation with Aubameyang correctly. Lacazette clearly couldn't do it, and in hindsight, we could say Nketiah could have carried us to top 4. But you have to ask yourself with this question: did we expect top 4 at the beginning of the season? The answer undoubtedly will be no if you search within your heart and ask that question. I predicted a 6th place finish, and yes, your goals can change when you get into spring and you have that opportunity to grab 4th. I want to be in the Champions League. I'd love to be there, whether it's ahead of schedule or not. But for the progression of this team, as Matt said, is probably best Europa League to build foundation. Look at United. We all expected them to make a huge step forward. They clearly didn't. The structure's not right at a club. And look at that team down the road that we don't like to talk about. They've got 2 world-class players that are carrying that team. So they're living on oxygen. And I don't know how long that oxygen is going to last for them. I think we're building in the correct way. So I'm going to say we overachieved, even though it hurts that we failed in the last couple of hurdles there,
And I just want to touch up on that as well, because I think if by us saying, yeah, next season our target is top four. Yes, it is top four. Do we have a good chance of getting it? Of course. I mean, everybody has a good chance. West Ham's going to be strong again next season. Chelsea's going to be strong. We know their new owners are going to be putting in and investing. Man United's going to spend whatever they need to in order to get back into the game. Spurs now, Conte yesterday he made a statement saying he's on board, so he's going to strengthen, and he has a very, very good record in terms of the team building, rated in one of the top 5 managers in the world. So by no means, guys, is it going to be easy for Arsenal next season. By no means is there any guarantees. Newcastle's an unknown commodity because before we played them, they had won their last 6 games outside of Liverpool. Liverpool were the only team to have beaten them, and that was by just a goal, by 1-0. And Newcastle right now are one of the informed teams closing out the season. So tax that on the fact that Eddie Howe's going to have a great summer. They're going to give him a lot of money. He's going to have a lot of freedom. It ain't going to be easy for Arsenal next season. But I think we've all answered the question in abundance. And what we have to do is look at the fact that where were Arsenal from the beginning of the season to the end of the season? The culture's working. The players are playing for the manager. The system is a work in progress, as we know. And the fans have experienced probably the best season ever at the Emirates. So we have the unity, guys, the unity between the owner, the front office, the manager, and the fans. It's like all 4 phases right now are in sync. So where we started the season, forget results and forget league position. But from a standpoint of where the franchise was at the beginning of the season to how unified we are as a culture, I think that's a great place to be.
It's a huge, huge change, like you say, a massive change. Calling for him to leave the club, a lot of disharmony amongst the Arsenal fan base. It was all going a bit sour. And I think that's where Arteta really does deserve a lot of, not just a lot, a huge amount of credit, really, because to turn that around within a season and unite a fan base to the point where it is now, that's phenomenal work. And I think he's done. If we look at the ins and outs in terms of who's gone, who's come in, the changes that he's made, they're massive. To do that in such a short period of time, a couple of years really is not a huge amount of time to get that amount of work done. But it's paying dividends now. And you'd like to think that next season, with a good summer, spending money in the right places. Because I think, I know people have criticised the Cronkies for not spending money. I think last summer, you can't say that they don't spend money because they do. I think the question has been where they've spent that money and what they've spent that money on. So I think with a clever summer and with our business done early, I think we could have a really good season next year. But like you say, Apollo, it's not going to be easy because there are a lot of teams, pushing for that top 4. It's not, it's no longer that 2 or 3 man race, for top positions. Yes, you've got City, Liverpool pushing for the title, but everybody below that, it's a real melting pot of teams pushing for those positions, and it could be anyone's. That top 6 could be anyone's. So it is going to be tough, and we're going to need to really, really push on this summer. And I'm really hoping that we do some good business early on. I don't want to see us waiting until last minute to get deals over the line. I just want us to go out, be proactive.
Anything to add? Right.
I think those who say we've underachieved are wishing, right? We're not looking at the situation realistically. We all want Arsenal to be back to where they were 20 years ago. We all want to be back winning titles, but you have to look at it realistically, and you have to say we overachieved. Given what you can see in our squad right now, we overachieved this season. Those who are saying we underachieved haven't really been looking at the squad and not really analyzing where we are amongst, as you're talking about, the climate in the Premier League. We've got 2 of the best teams in Europe, let alone England, in City and Liverpool. And, we've got a group of teams trying to chase the 2 spots that are left. We got another team in Chelsea. Newcastle's coming forward. But we can't be afraid of other teams. We have to look at what we're going to do and the recruitment we're going to do this summer. And we can improve also.
Is Glenn with us? Glenn, you still there?
I think he's frozen.
He's frozen. Okay,
It
so
looks like he has frozen. He didn't like what I
Well,
said.
I wondered why the silence when I'm hang on. Yeah, he's frozen in the top corner.
Somebody just left a comment on there saying underachieved, and the question I pose to that fan is, have you taken into consideration what any other team in the league would do with the inexperience at hand? The most inexperienced manager, the most inexperienced squad, the youngest squad, and you're talking about top four football. I mean, that is bonkers. We just talked about Man United finishing second, spending all that money bringing in prime time players. Varane, prime time player on for Real Madrid. Sancho, one of the top young European talents in world football. Ronaldo, top two. Him and Messi, debatable over the last 5 to 10 years, which one of them is the best player in the world. So you talk about all that stuff going on, and Arsenal. There's little Arsenal, youngest team, most inexperienced manager, and then we're talking about they underachieved. I just don't understand it.
So
I don't understand it. I don't get it.
There's a couple of things there, Apollo. It's how the club has moved to tool the team. If you're looking at it that way, we've underachieved. Because the club hasn't given, or Arteta hasn't taken what he's needed for the season. But if you're looking at it in the cold light of day in terms of our squad, we've definitely overachieved.
Because I think the mix of it is I'm grateful for where we are because I know Arsenal. Arsenal have shown a lack of ambition to the fans, to the players. That's the reason why these big names like Henry, Vieira, and Fabregas, and that's the reason why they all left. Van Persie, they all left because we showed no ambition. None. And here we are right now, paying some serious wages, spending over the last 3 seasons more money than any team recorded in the Premier League. And that is, Josh Kroenke is proved to be a very ambitious owner in comparison to when Stan was calling the shots. Stan is still there, but Josh is the decision maker. Josh is the guy that says yay or nay. He's the guy that goes to Arsenal games. He's the yes man and no man. He's the guy that says, yes, it's going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. And, Stan is not that guy anymore. And Josh is showing massive ambition. And if Josh Kroenke wasn't here, guys, could you imagine how bad things would be with Stan calling the shots and Stan not throwing money at Arsenal?
Yeah.
Where would we be?
And I think Josh has tried to make that connection between the ownership himself and his father, KSC, and the fans themselves. Wenger was in Europe for 20 years, and I think we'd all argue after 2006, we never really pushed the boat out to go any further in Europe. We'd get to the quarterfinal stage. I've been arguing maybe Arteta's got that ambition, and he does have some favor with the Kroenkes that he can get the signings across the board.
Yeah, Wenger never had that money, man. Wenger never had that. Wenger was told by the bank and the front office that he has to save money. He was never told to go out and spend money on players. So, yeah, man.
Yeah,
I think it's go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just going to say, Arteta obviously has faith from the Kroenkes. That's clear. They've backed him very, very heavily in terms of finance, but obviously you can see there's a very clear they trust him in what he's trying to achieve. Obviously, all those things that we don't see, as fans, behind the scenes, the work he does with the players. There's obviously something going on, that's working right. But they're obviously seeing things happening which are positive and are moving us forward as a club. So I think we just have to trust. I won't say the P word, but we just have to trust, I think, in what's going on. We have seen improvement. Yes, it's not been... There are things, absolutely. Arteta is a young manager. We've seen this season that there are things that have frustrated us all as fans. He's never going to get it 100% right. Wenger didn't get it 100% right. Let's face it, we could all pin back in games and things like that where things shouldn't have gone the way we think they should have gone. No manager's perfect, but I think by and large, when you look at the season as a whole, actually we have moved forward as a team. I think the players have very much gelled together. Like you say, you know, they're playing for each other, they're playing for the manager. I think we've rooted out a lot of the troublemakers, and I think we've got a lot of great squad harmony. I think we just need, I think it's just all about that sprinkling the stardust now and getting the experience, you know, mixing in those real top quality, been there, won it, done it, you know, those kind of players, you know, in the kind of 28, 20, 27, 28, 29 bracket, you know, even one or two are at, you know, 30 who have been there and won things. You know, you look at David Luiz. I think actually, yes, for all his sins, he had a few moments, but he was actually very good.
He had a massive impact. Yeah, he had a massive impact. When Saka signed his deal and they said to Saka, who was the most influential leader, and he said it was David Luiz.
Yeah. So I think we need some of that. You know, there's a lot of value in having those kind of players around. And obviously, you know, we don't want to be pushing too many kind of 30-year-olds because we don't want to be the retirement home of games. But I think we, you know, obviously we just need that been there, won it, done it. Because I think in this season, I think what we've really lacked is that type of player who's been in those scrappy situations, has been 2-0 down or 1-0 down, is able to rally the troops, get their heads together, focus and calm things down, and really see games out and, you know, focus the team. So I think we've looked a bit panicked at times and we've not had that experience to play how we should be. And we've looked, you know, you saw the end of the season, you know, we just almost imploded, I think, at times. And I think that just comes with game time and experience. And I think we'll be better for that next season.
I'd rather be in a position where we know what we need to do, where the board knows what they need to do, the positions that need to be fixed. Look at Man United; they're in a mess, and Ten Hag's got to tear it down now and start over.
Sorry, Glenn, is there a bit of noise? Can you hear a bit of noise in the background on my microphone?
Yeah, just no problem.
All right, hold on a second.
Okay, so it's a definite overachievement from everyone. Everyone has gone for overachievement, and I definitely agree with that because I predicted fifth. I did predict fifth at the beginning of the season, but I also did predict Pepe to be our second top scorer, and that didn't work out at all. So, as Apollo said earlier on, there's a couple of reasons why we underachieved, and there's a couple of reasons why we overachieved. But I think the overachievement reasons would be more than the underachievement. Like people would say, we only had one competition to play in. That's the reason why you underachieved, which is true because considering all the other teams had like Europa League, like Conference League, a team like Leicester had like 2-3 different competitions. Chelsea had to play in the Club World Cup. All those reasons definitely work out. I think looking at it as a whole, as Ray said, we've definitely overachieved. So as we wait for Apollo, we'll go to the next topic. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section. Player of the season. This is going to be an interesting one. I was going to start with Matt, so definitely start with you on this one. Who was your player of the season this campaign?
Do you know what? At different points of this season, you could have picked a few, couldn't you? You know, for me though, do you know what? I think Odegaard for me. I think he has been really instrumental for us. And I think that as the season went on, I think he shone. You know, he pulls the strings. I think he keeps things ticking over. I think he gives us something that a lot of players in that kind of area don't. Obviously, we do have Emil Smith Rowe, for example. You can be fairly similar. It was obviously fantastic as well. You know, but for me, it was Odegaard. Pure class.
Yeah, pure class. So we actually have another question talking about who was your signing of the season. Going to be interesting to see what you have to add on that one, Matt. Ray, who was your player of the season?
I know that Apollo and you were talking about his player of the season. I have a feeling Matt might have hit on something there. But anyway, my player of the season, and you know, in various points of the season, you'll have different takes on this. But for the whole season, I think Gabriel Magalhaes has been very, very consistent, played a lot of games. Yes, sure, he's made a few mistakes, but for a central defender to score 5 goals throughout the season has been immense, and I think he has held things together. The communication between him and especially Ben White and Ramsdale have been the nucleus of that defense, because we've known our fullbacks have had a lot of issues. Trying to put out Tierney and Tomiyasu has been difficult. So for Gabriel to navigate the whole season, and you know, a real sign of a great defender is to go and get gritty points away from home. Scoring that header at West Ham, the winning goal, Away at Leicester. I think someone else referenced that Leicester win away from home. And Wolves, when we were lacking goals, we scored a few goals through Gabriel because we didn't have it coming from the striker position. And I think Arteta had a conscious thought to push his defenders forward and try and grab a few goals because Lacazette was not going to get him for us. But for me, I'm going to give it to Gabriel Magalhaes.
Interesting one, very interesting one.
that's
Apollo, it's your time to shine. It's your time to shine.
Right, choose the first one. That I sent you.
Whatever you want, Apollo. Whatever you want. Apollo had everything prepared for me today.
So, guys, I just want to say that Odegaard has been a central figure in Arsenal's rise up the Premier League table. He's become one of Mikel Arteta's most influential players. I know he only scored 7 goals and 4 assists, but he creates a chance every 45 minutes. That's 2 per game, and that's the 3rd highest in the league. So when you look at this, he's laying the groundwork for his teammates. And when, I know people talking about Saka, and Saka's got all the votes on the website, but Saka's form and success has been managed by Odegaard. His touches, the inspiration, they've been the difference in this team's form for me. And almost every Arsenal great move that we've seen, he's involved in it. He's also ranked, as you guys can see, he's ranked in the top 4 for passes in the final third, passes into the opposition's box. I mean, he literally is maxed out. You can see from chances created for an open play, passes into the final third, passes into the box, expected assists. He's number 1. Everything. He ticks every single box. And let's forget about the season for a minute. Let's talk about his 6 months on loan. Arsenal, before he came in, we were 18th in the league in shots, 16th in creativity. And when he came in, he shot us up the table. Just one man. I know that they implemented Smith Rowe as well, and Smith Rowe also made a big difference. But in that last 6 months of the previous season, we had the 2nd most points in the Premier League in the last 6 months, which we talked about before. And it's him. He's the deciding factor. This guy, and look, there's another sheet that you can pull up, Glenn, if you can. There's another sheet that you can pull up on him. It's not just his offense. And his offensive side, I love it. He's got that Mesut Ozil touch. But what Ozil doesn't have is his defensive play. Oh, Glenn's gone again. That's all right. I'll keep you guys cozy until Glenn comes back. Glenn had to switch. Glenn had to switch because of his browser. But guys, it's not just his offense. It's his defensive play. He presses aggressively. He's got the 3rd highest tackles and the 4th highest ball recoveries. First in possessions won. That's the pressing you do in the final third when we're shutting down the goalkeeper, playing the ball like from the back. He's the best in the team at doing that. And he covers more ground than every single player in the team. He shuts off passing lanes. He disrupts oppositional players attempting to play out from the back. Guys, he is phenomenal. He's 11.4 kilometers. Is half a kilometer more than anybody on the team. It's not just a little gap. It's a massive gap. And guys, he's showing the leadership and maturity as captain. He is by far, not even close, my player of the season.
Yeah, definitely my shout for captain as well when that decision comes to be next season.
I wonder why you laughed, Apollo.
Yeah, I couldn't believe. I thought I was like, listen, you done your research, man. You know what time it is.
He's definitely been great for us, man. And I've noticed every time, like Saka usually gets subbed off. Sometimes it's a couple of knocks. Usually our players don't play every single game, but Odegaard usually plays 90 minutes. Whether we are playing against Burnley, whether it's United, it's Chelsea, it's very fit as well, which is great. I hope we can stay with the fitness because we suffer a lot of injuries. Let us know in the chat who was your player of the season. I actually did a poll a couple of days ago, and it was a landslide on Saka. Apollo, like 80% voted Saka as player of the season.
It's funny you mentioned that because I did the poll on my YouTube channel and it was Odegaard that came up on top. I was very surprised. Yeah, maybe because they've heard me the way that they hear me talk about him. But I do want to say one thing, guys. The thing that's not been stressed enough with this football team is when Thomas Partey got injured, we lost that transitional link because when we play the ball out of the back, it goes to Partey, he shields off players, and he's always finding Odegaard, and then Odegaard distributes to the front line. And we lost that, and we never recovered. We just never recovered. Nobody had that ability to link up with Odegaard. That's how important that whole chain of command through the middle of the field is in transitional from playing out the back. Even Ramsdale's distribution struggled. It's been awful in the last month, his distribution. Yeah. But all of that was because of Thomas Partey. So the whole thing is integral from the back moving forward of how we work, you know, with this Partey Odegaard link. It was something that I really enjoyed watching when I was at the stadium. And when Partey was injured, even me, I said, that's it, guys. That's it. I don't think we'll make top 4.
Apollo, I know Partey was a big miss this season towards the tail end of the season, but do you not think the immaturity of the players, the young players, it sort of got to them as well? Ramsdale fell apart, whereas he was the leading light for 3/4 of the season. I just feel like the young players didn't have that leadership going forward.
Yeah, I think it was down to the fact that, you know, we could always bring back January, and January hurt us in so many different ways because, you know, we were the only team that didn't rotate. From January to April, you know, when we had the issue when Rob Holding came in, El Nene came in, Nketiah came in, and those guys were man of the matches for a lot of the games leading up to the end of the season. But what it did was, if you look back at the last 2 months with Smith Rowe, the Saka, and Martinelli, nothing. You got nothing from those players. What it said to me that they just had nothing left in the tank. They were running on fumes. Even in the Newcastle game, like, you were looking for something. I said, you know, we've had a little bit of a rest. Let's see what these guys, because they've done nothing for. It's been Nketiah carrying us, 5 goals in 8 appearances. Nketiah actually 9 goals in 12 starts this season. And then El Nene got 2 man of the matches. Rob Holding came on and won the West Ham game for us, and Gabriel scored in that game as well. So that was both the centre backs. But those stars that put us on the pedestal this season were just gone. They were just they gave everything, and because there was no rotation, because of lack of the squad, they were spent. They were exhausted.
Yeah. Matt, since you said Odegaard as well, David says Odegaard was a key player but goes missing in so many games. If Arsenal is given time to play, then he plays good, but when we are pressed, he goes missing. How do you feel about that?
See, I would have said that much earlier in his time with Arsenal. I think very early on, I think he really struggled with the physicality and the pace of the league. And I think that, particularly on his loan period, I think that was quite obvious. But I don't think he the stat, like Apollo's brilliantly put that together, obviously with Glenn as well. Those stats don't lie. You know, the amount of running he does, you know, the amount of pressing he does. That to me doesn't say this guy goes missing. That's to me says he leads from the front, and he's there. He's visible, and you watch him probably maybe from as he became more prominent in the side, maybe a bit almost halfway through the season onwards. He was prominent, like you say. He was involved in pretty much everything that we created. You know, you could see him chasing the ball down. You know, his pressing was much, much better, much more involved with the game. He didn't lose the ball as easily as he used to. He was much more up to speed with the league, you know, whereas he used to maybe get brushed off the ball a little bit or get caught in possession a little bit early on. That stopped. You know, he's much more alert to things because he's up to pace with the league. And that does take a little bit of time. It doesn't happen overnight. But I think the guy's been fantastic. I don't think he goes missing at all. I think he just struggled a little bit earlier on in his time with Arsenal to adapt to the league, and he's well up to speed now.
Yeah.
And since
he's had a great season as well to showcase his credentials to be captain as well, leading by example, as Apollo has shown with those graphics.
But you know what? He's also a player that quietly goes about his business. He's not a big shouter. He's not he's not a Martin Keown who's in your face. You know, he's not that kind of player who's going to be aggressive. You know, he works hard. He works his socks off. He creates a lot, but you're not going to necessarily, if you watch him, you'll appreciate him. But I think if you're not necessarily watching him, you can maybe get the impression that he's not there, but he is. If you watch him, honestly, keep an close eye on him in games. He's involved with everything.
And I do want to say, on the 9th of April, we were all frustrated because we lost 2-1 against Brighton, a team that had only scored 1 goal in their last 7 games and had lost 4 games at home in a row. And us losing that game, I think that was kind of signs. That was when we went down that skid after the Palace game. But in that game, we had 20 shots. He created 8 of those. 8. He created 8 chances in that game. Just one player had that much influence on the game. And so when you see that, yes, we lost and everybody's upset and they're sad, and, you know, some people said, oh, we didn't turn up in that. He turned up. It's not his fault that Lacazette weren't doing his job. Lacazette has not been able to hit a barn door for months. 2 goals from open play all season. That's what someone like Odegaard had to work with. He didn't have a lot to work with. So you can't blame him. He's doing his job. He's putting the balls on a plate. And that's what you can answer him. What we need is guys in front of him who can be more clinical in goal. And then those kind of stats like assists will pay off. Because the stats that all 4 of us have been looking on those sheets, those are things fans don't talk about. Those are the stuff that, you know, looking into deep analysis that you can say this guy is so good, man, because it's just not his offensive, you know, aperture, it's his defensive work as well. And the manager's looking at, the manager has all the data and the coaches have all the data. They see this on a daily basis. That's why they love this player. This guy was our #1 summer transfer target, and he's made such a massive influence on this team.
And what about
Interesting. I mean, Apollo, some like David will say the stats can't tell the whole story.
Yeah, do you know what? Stats can be manipulated 100%. You know, you can manipulate statistics and data to suit a point you want to make. Absolutely. Pundits do it all the time. You know, politicians do it all the time. 100%. But I think when you take those stats and you actually rewatch the games, I think they do marry up and they do tally up with what you're seeing. That's, I mean, obviously we're all, you know, absolutely entitled to have a difference of opinion on that, but I think those statistics to me marry up with what I've been seeing this season. That slide doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Some of the defensive work on some of those stats does, the pressing doesn't, the mileage covered doesn't. But some of those points doesn't. Not because I don't think he does do some of that, just because maybe it's more than I thought he did. But that marries up to me.
Glenn doesn't like us today, does he?
Or his computer hates us.
We're a flat back 3 now.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Hey, there he is.
Freaked up internet. Remember, we are talking of player of the season. No one is saying he's not good, he's key, but Saka is better. Well, we have 2 Odegaards, we have a Gabriel as well on the list, and I don't know. Personally, I'd still go for Saka because I feel like literally a lot of things that we did that were good went through him on that right side. There's some games that I literally felt like if we aren't going to pass it to Saka, we aren't really going to do anything. Like the Newcastle game, I was screaming for them to pass it to Saka because the only time we passed it to him, that's the only time we had a shot on target in that first half. So I still go with Saka, but Odegaard definitely
do you know
is
what,
the...
though, Glenn? But you know, we say about Odegaard going missing. I thought, and through no fault of his own, by the way, I will make that clear. I think Saka's obviously this season, I don't think he's missed a game. So he's been overplayed. And I think there was a period of this season where he did go missing a little bit. There was a run of games where he wasn't really at the top of his game. You could see that he was absolutely knackered. You could see that he wasn't at the races a little bit. So, you know, I think all of the players this season have had to really dig in because we haven't had that squad depth. So I think you could probably aim that at a lot of players this season where they've had a run of 3 or 4 games and haven't been at it. Ramsdale, end of the season, you know, he's been amazing all season. Last few games, not that great. You know, we've had moments probably from everybody where they've gone missing a little bit. You know, I think that's probably fair for everybody.
I think that'll be the big challenge next season. Obviously, with 4 competitions, hopefully a bigger squad. Arteta's going to have to learn to juggle players. And, you know, Saka there was a player sitting on the bench for the majority of the season who could have taken minutes away from Saka and given him some time.
Don't worry, we'll talk about him. Don't worry, we'll talk about him on this very straight. Who was the signing of the season, Dre? Since the others have said Odegaard, so I guess they'll say the same on this one. Would you still say Odegaard, or would you go for the guys at the back?
For me, that question is
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Aaron Ramsdale.
Mm.
I think he's just injected so much enthusiasm into this team. He went along with the youth revolution that has happened. And I think a little bit to the detriment at the end of the season, too much gamesmanship from Ramsdale, White, and Gabriel. They got involved in too much silly things like scraping lines along with scuffing up the penalty spot. But definitely the good part of it was encouragement, communication, and bringing everybody together in a unit. So for me, Aaron Ramsdale, and he made some key saves as well, and to transform the way we've been playing out from the back. Because let's face it, Bernd Leno was not the best with playing out with his feet. Good shot stopper, and Bernd Leno came in and did a good job against Aston Villa. But for me, Aaron Ramsdale, from the fourth game on, when he was introduced, really, really helped the whole team prosper. So Aaron Ramsdale from.
So, Paul, apart from Odegaard, I'm sure you wouldn't be mentioning Tavares or Lokonga. So, between White, Tomiyasu, and Ramsdale, who would you pick?
Tomiyasu. And the reason why I have to do that is because I would have gone for Ramsdale, but his consistency over the last two months, actually, since March, has just fallen off. And with Tomiyasu, the only bad game I saw him play was against Liverpool in the League Cup, of which he actually wasn't ready. He hadn't played in such a long time, and he was injured. And the manager said, "Look, he's only 75%. I'm not sure if he's going to make it through the game." So even though he was awful, there was a reason for that. But I think if you look at every other single one of his performances, he's never had a bad game for Arsenal. So the fact that he can bring some of that to the team speaks volumes. And from a tactical standpoint, I always wonder, when we played Spurs and we beat them 3-1 at home, and he shut down Song on that side, and then in the return game at Spurs' home ground, we went away with that and put Suarez and Holding on Song. And I was just like, but you knew that.
Yeah.
Because Suarez can play left back as well, right? So why didn't we just put Tomiyasu? Anyway, I'm talking about something completely different. But my point is Tomiyasu is just a stud. He is an absolutely 6'2". A lot of our distribution game plan goes through him as well, because if Ramsdale hits it wide right, Tomiyasu will go up there and win it. He's so good on set pieces. He's so good in transition. He gets up and down the pitch. He has boundless amounts of energy, runs full 90 minutes. I can't wait till we see a fully fit Tomiyasu back next season.
Apollo, you think it was just adjusting to the Premier League for him this season, that he didn't play as many games as he possibly should have had?
That's a good question, and I think it's probably... Well, his injury was at Christmas, right? So I just... It's weird because Partey never got injured before he came here. Danny Welbeck never got injured before he came here. That was Tomiyasu's first ever main injury. He never got injured before he came here. So a lot of it, I agree with what you're saying. A lot of it we can put down to just the sheer physicalness of the Premier League. It's just, I watched a few of his games for Bologna, and the Italian league is such a slow build-up game that's played in the midfield. It's not this end-to-end stuff. And you come to the Premier League and you just get exposed. And he's adapted really, really well. So, that's I'm going to go Tomiyasu on that one.
Hopefully more games for him next season then.
Oh, he was incredible. Like, no one actually expected anything from him when we signed him on deadline day. We were expecting like a midfielder, like a Bruno Guimaraes or someone like that. But he was very good, very good.
I expected a striker, Glenn.
A
I expected
striker.
a striker, but we didn't get him.
Yep. Matt, who would you go for from the three defenders?
You could almost put both of them up there for the same reasons, really. I love the fact that the common theme between those two players for me, and which is why it's so difficult for me to choose between the two, is because both of those players were, well, Tommy Asset was like, Tommy who? Yes, who? Who? I mean, I'd never heard of him before we'd signed him. I'll openly admit that. So I had no idea who he was, no idea if he was any good or not. So he took a little bit of research into kind of look, let's see why we're going for him. Ramsdale got slated, by a lot of Arsenal fans and were on his back before he'd even joined the club. So I love the underdog side of that. I love the fact that both of those players came into the side. Not really, you didn't know about Tommy Asu, no one knew what to expect. Ramsdale, was written off before he'd even started a game and kicked the ball. And both of them have done absolutely brilliantly in different ways. I think for me, I probably would give it to Ramsdale. I absolutely agree with all the points that Apollo's made with Tommy Asu. He's been phenomenal, and I think he's going to be a monster for us at the back. And he gives us that height, that physicality that we really miss. And he's so versatile as well, because obviously playing both feet, I think Japan, they make you play with both feet. That's really useful for us, and you can play in different positions. But I think, like Ray's touched on, I think the fact that Ramsdale, from a personality point of view, has made such a massive impact on the team and brought that group together. And I think in some ways, actually, Ramsdale has been a big part of actually uniting the fan base as well, because as we've seen him, with his antics, his personality, I think we've really got behind him. And I think he's really brought the fan base into that kind of squad, and we've all got behind them a lot more easily, I think. So I would probably give it to Ramsdale just because of his influence as well. Yeah.
Matt, I'm going to big you up because at the start of the season, you shipped their names together. You called them Rami Yasu.
That's it, yeah. Rami Yasu. The bromance, the Rami Yasu bromance, yeah.
Props to you, Matt.
Love them. I absolutely love them both.
Yeah, Tommy Yasu has just been absolutely amazing, guys. He's just been so good to see. And I think a few guys said that he had defended Ronaldo well when he was playing Juventus as well. So,
your point, Apollo, why didn't we dedicate Tommy Yasu to be an absolute man-marking machine so that he could follow? If Son goes to the left side, Tommy Yasu goes left. If Son goes right, Tommy Yasu follows him right. And that's the way I think we should deploy Tommy Yasu, to actually play him on the opposition's best attacker, the best
He's
winger.
Just so consistent. Like you say, exactly what you're going to get from Tommy Yasu every week. So reliable. He, like I say, apart from that one game, which I believe actually it was only the first half. Because if I remember rightly, that second half actually came out and was a bit better. But what you're getting with him. He's not going to put a foot wrong. He's just super, super reliable.
Well, we're waiting for Glenn to come back. Glenn had said in the comments, I prefer Tommy Dale to Rami Yasu.
Tommy Dale.
Tommy Dale. He actually reminds me a little bit of Nacho Monreal. I've been doing player ratings for for as long as I remember. I think I've had the Facebook page going for about 9 years now. So I think I've been doing player ratings for Arsenal on social media for about a decade. And I've always remembered, very rarely given Monreal anything less than a 7. He was that consistent. I never, the guy just didn't do anything wrong. Never put a foot wrong. And this guy reminds me of Tommy Yasu. He really does. It reminds me of Monreal.
These players that you can set your watch by, Monreal and now Tommy Yasu, great signing going into the new season. Of the signings that we've had, those were our signings of the season. Ramsdale, 1 vote, and I think 2 votes for Tommy Yasu. Man Martin died in the late 90s.
Says John. John is always one of
did a lot of really bad haircuts.
Yeah. Thank you guys for covering. So we've done the play of the season, the signing of the season. We have 2 more topics to go, and I really want to hear from you guys on results of the season, because I said in terms of overachieving, part of that was the results we picked up this season, the home game against Tottenham, the home game against Man United. beating Chelsea away from home again, beating Wolves home and away, beating West Ham home and away, beating was it Leicester as well home and away, teams we rarely beat. So I'd like to hear from you, Ray, first. Which game was your result of this season, or which match did impress you the most this season?
Okay, you picked one of them, Glenn, and I didn't smile. I didn't let on which one it was. Losing 3 games against Palace, Brighton, Southampton. That was the depth of our season. We were falling fast. The next game up was Chelsea away from home. So needed something. And listen, we have to accept this is a young team, and they're going to have ups and downs, and these things are going to happen. We don't have consistent mid-20 players that have been through this, seen that, got the T-shirt and the DVD. These players are going to have dips, and if we all hated that sound. The worst result was Southampton away for me. That was the depth of it, and for the team to pick it up, yeah, maybe the pressure was off their shoulders, but the team pick it up against us. Apollo referenced chasing a third place team. Listen, probably never really thought we'd get third place, but come back and beat Chelsea away from home, and Kedia stepping up when he was needed. He played in the Southampton game, but he needed that game to get back up to speed. Emile Smith-Rowe, another goal, probably his last goal, I think, in the campaign. And finished off by Bukayo Saka, exercising the demons of the European campaign, the final there. And then, he stepped up against Man United, taking another penalty. So for me, we see what they can do. We see the best of this team. We've seen the worst, obviously. And we have to find the middle ground somewhere. The consistency has to be somewhere in the middle and somewhere close to that Chelsea result. So for me, going away from home, and I think we conceded goals right away in the first 2 instances, and then to have that mentality to come back and go again and win the game comprehensively in the end, the scoreline 4-2. So for me, it was Chelsea away from home.
Apollo, Chelsea, or you have any other games? There are so many good results this season.
There was. I mean, the Villa game, the Spurs game at home was amazing, but I absolutely agree that it was the Chelsea game, and because it was just, I think what it was is after losing Partey and there was no Tierney and Tomiyasu wasn't there, I think that at that point we looked like we were going to drop down to 7th or 8th. That's how it looked. And it was the manager. That game, when we lose, they blame it on the manager. But when we win a game like that, they don't give the manager any respect at all, because he came in that game in a back three. He just did something different. The tactics was completely reworked. He brought in, so many different changes. El Nene started that game, and we were just, it was like, what am I looking at here? It was just surprising to see what was going on. And that's when you actually felt something was going on. And that led on to the West Ham and the Man United wins. So just the fact that people were saying, oh, Arteta, he hasn't got a plan B. He can't mix it up. He doesn't know what to do with the team. And then bang, he just goes and changes everything and it works. Yeah, Chelsea game for me.
Chelsea. Matt?
I think we've got a full house here, 100%. The Chelsea game, yeah, all of the reasons above. Look, like I say, we had those games. For us, we've all seen it before, where it goes on a downward spiral, heads get down, fans, start getting a bit fractious. We saw that could have been huge for us, really. Like you say, if we'd have gone down that downward spiral, finished 7th, 8th, not picked up those points, we would be having a very different conversation, and the fan base would be very, very different in terms of our outlook than what it is. That was a massive, massive result. And I think that showed a lot of character from the team. Yes, absolutely. The 3 games before that, we really should have won those games. But for them to not let them get their heads down, to go and win that game confidently, not go down that downward spiral and and see us finish. To be honest, I think I was a little bit worried at that point. I'm sure a lot of other people on here were as well at that point. You're thinking, hello, where's this now going? I thought that was massive. and then to, like say, off the back of that, then pick up that confidence to then go and get the next few wins and obviously continue our march and be in with a shout of top 4 and finish 5th. I think that was a sign to me of what this team can do. Like I say, it's the inconsistency, but we can do it. We can go and compete with the big boys if we want to. But obviously we've got to do that consistently. And obviously we need a little bit of help now in the summer to kind of strengthen and give us depth to do that consistently. But the talent's there. And I love the attitude of this team, I love it. They're able to dig deep. And I think the youth, whilst the youth is sometimes a negative, I think that lack of fear and sometimes that lack of experience of the negativity, because sometimes, obviously, yes, winning trophies is great experience, but also not having the weight and baggage of losing and being in that position before and the worry that brings, being free of all that baggage allows them just to focus on the next game and get it done. So I think that almost helped them in that situation. But massive game, massive result, and really helped us, I think, for the end of the season, finishing 5th.
And I think what it was is Nketiah's coming out party.
Yeah.
The month before, all 4 of us talked about how we've rated him as a player and his skill set. And there's a large majority of the fan base that just have been in denial when it comes to Nketiah. And after that game, on social media, the feedback the fans were giving him, it was brilliant to hear. As a big Eddie fan for the last 2 years, I've been talking him up for years. And just to see that came out, I was just like sitting back, smoking a cigar. I don't smoke, by the way. Smoking a cigar, just drinking my nice little drink, just relaxing and saying, see what happens if you just play the kid.
So I got one question for you, Apollo. I know you've bigged up and you talked about Eddie in the last couple of months, the last few shows. If you haven't seen it, people go back and check it out. What are you hoping for next season? How many strikers are you hoping the club will sign this summer?
I'm hoping, and remember, guys, we talked about this. The definition of a striker, in my eyes, is very different to an out-and-out striker. I think that your Gabriel Jesus, your Jonathan David, I think that is, your prototypical striker these days. Your Raheem Sterling. I think you're looking for your striker to do a little bit more. You're looking for that whole Firmino, Salah, Mane, Mahrez. You're looking for that dynamic attacking forward player. Theo Walcott, we could bring his name into the mix as well. You're looking for someone who can do more than just score goals, who can press on the back line, disrupt the play coming out of the backfield of the opposition, create assist and link play. You're looking for more than a striker. So I personally am not looking for anyone else other than more attacking players coming into the side. They don't have to be a bona fide striker per se, but it can be someone who goes out there and gets you goals and gets you assists. I don't really care if we don't go out and buy a big man,
How many do you think we need then, Apollo? Be it a winger, be it a striker?
I think you'd probably need another 2. You do, but it's really difficult because you can't not give Eddie a chance. Because if you play Eddie, he'll score. There's no 2 ways about it. He's got 5 goals in 8 Premier League starts. Lacazette played a whole season, didn't get that. Aubameyang played a half a season and didn't even get that. So, and not just that, guys, but this is very, very important and very critical to our mindset. The guys you're going out to buy, their XG ratings and numbers are not as good as Eddie's. Let's just put that out there, because a couple of guys have talked about it. Chris Wheatley's talked about it. Charles Watts has talked about it. All these targets that we're after, their goals per minute and XGs are not as good as Nketiah's. This guy is a workhorse. He runs and runs and runs. He shuts down. He closes. He's tireless. He does everything that the manager needs in order to be a facilitator. He's a friend to the midfield. He's not anyone that's just going to sit on the goal line and wait for that ball to come through. Eddie will work his socks off for Houston for 90 minutes. You bring in another striker, he ain't going to do that for you. So we need to be very careful how we build this thing moving forward. Because if we're talking about, oh, let's just put Eddie on the bench, then you've actually lost something. You've lost something. So I wish I could answer that question. I think that we were always looking to buy 2 strikers in the summer. And I think with Eddie Nketiah now, I think we may be looking now for just 1 striker and then another attacking number 8, an attacking sort of forward wide player. So the premise may have changed because of Nketiah.
Okay.
Awesome. So we've done the play of the season, signing of the season, and match of the season. All of them have gone for Chelsea. I'm glad some people mentioned the Wolves games. That was the time I really felt like we were going to get top 4. Those 2 late goals against Wolves, they were very good. And speaking of the Wolves game, there's a certain player who scored the first goal in that match, a certain Pepe. Now, we've been linked to Marquinhos, who will probably be joining us soon from Brazil, and he plays in the same position as Saka. And Pepe recently got a new agent. So since Gray, you mentioned him earlier, should we keep or sell Pepe? This is what we are going to end it on, by the way. Should we keep or sell Pepe? Have you seen enough, or do you think he still has a spot at Arsenal?
Okay, this comes down to 2 things, right? Personal opinion and what you think Arteta is going to do, right?
Yeah. Just what you were going to do.
I think Arteta's seen enough of Pepe, and obviously has not given him minutes this season at all. You throw Pepe into the side, he doesn't give you the structure that Arteta is obsessed about, apparently, but he will give you goals. He will give you assists almost every other game. His numbers are pretty good when it comes to that. For me, I really do like the player. I really wanted it to work for him. Big proportion of the fan base are against him now because they see this unstructured chaos, and I think they bought in a little bit to what Arteta's been spinning in terms of specificity and ball retention. But if you look at Pepe, I used to call him, he's basically Ozil with end product. You get frustrated with Mesut Ozil, and he wouldn't often give you end product toward the end of his career. I think Pepe will. For me, I would keep him, but I understand. I think we've seen the last of Pepe. He's probably going to get sold.
Wow. Apollo, Pepe, have you seen enough, or do you think we should give him more time?
I totally agree. You've said it better than I could say. He's a player that is just doesn't fit this system, and I've said he is the most talented player on this team. I cannot see anybody. The way he glides past players, the touches, 2-footed. He'll go top bins right, top bins left. He's lethal in the box. He can play all across the board, although he's never played as a central striker. He can play number 10. He can play out. Funny, he plays right for us, but every time he plays left, he's been outstanding. I've never seen him have a bad game on the left-hand side. And we've tried to figure... Yeah, and in the last 4 or 5 months, neither Smith Rowe nor Martinelli have been outstanding on the left. And you've got somebody there who can solve your problem, but the manager just doesn't like him. The manager just doesn't like him. And for that reason, I think we should save ourselves the embarrassment and the player and just get what we can for him. Because if we were going to use him, remember, we had 18 squad players and 4 of them were academy players. So we essentially had 14 players. We were that desperate and we still never utilized them. That's how unwanted he is by Arteta. So put the guy out of his misery, man. Let him go where he wants to go.
Before I come to you, Matt, Apollo, you just said, let's get whatever we can for him. How much do you think we can get for him? That's another question. How many teams really want him out there?
Honestly, about 30, 35 million.
Wow.
And that's knowing that a lot of French teams don't have money.
Yeah,
I mean,
35 million.
If PSG comes in for him, then I would go 40 million euros. I would go 40 million euros.
Wow. That's interesting. I actually don't think we're going to get anywhere near that. Matt, Pepe, keep or sell?
Do you know what? Like the guy said, I think there's a talented player there. I think we've seen flashes of that. It's frustrating because, as Apollo's mentioned, he's been great down the left, and actually, when he got a run of games there, he was actually doing some really good stuff. But then he got hoiked out of the team, didn't play for a long time. You just wonder why, because he was actually starting to make a good impact on that side of the pitch, where we were struggling as well, by the way, because Aubameyang was doing absolutely sod all down that side of the pitch. So you just wonder why, when a player was getting, a run of 3-4 games, doing really well, outperforming the player that was there ahead of him, it's very difficult, as Cool Case said in his comment, to want to keep a player when the manager clearly doesn't back him. And as Apollo said, he's had all of those factors backed in, and he still hasn't got minutes. So, even if I personally think there's a good player in there, I think if he was given enough minutes and enough game time, a bit like Nketiah, I think, if you give him a good run of games, he'll get goals. And as Ray's pointed out, his numbers, when you actually give him a chance, aren't that bad. And I think he could be a valuable depth player. Bear in mind, we're going to be in 3 competitions or so, next year. He could be a really good option for us. But despite all of that, we all want him to be a success. We all think he's got value in the squad if he gets minutes. Sadly, I don't think that's going to happen. And ultimately, on that basis, I think you have to sell him. You just have to get what you can. And I agree with you, Glenn. I think we'd struggle to get 35, 40 million for him. I think we're probably looking more 30, 25, I think. And knowing Arsenal and how we do business, looking at, recently where we've done business, we'll probably just cut our losses and probably do that. It wouldn't surprise me if we got rid of him for 25 million and just off you go.
He'll get 20 goals. He'll get 20 goals for it wherever he's going. If you play him every game, he'll light it up, man.
Yeah.
So if you're the Arsenal manager, you would keep him, right?
That, but frustrating for us that we couldn't give him that opportunity.
If you are the manager, you would keep him, right, Trey?
If I was the manager, I would keep him. Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Matt and Apollo agree. Wow, okay, interesting.
Yeah. If I was the manager, he would have started the last few months on the left-hand side for me. Because I've been getting nothing from Martinelli and Smith Rowe. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
You have to live with the frustration, but he will give you those moments in games.
The 2 million price tag has definitely come back to haunt him.
Yeah. I mean, I would have made the top 4 if I had put Pepe on the right on the left-hand side over the last few months.
Awesome. I know a lot of people who would disagree with keeping Pepe. I mean, yes, everyone does have a bad game, as Apollo mentioned earlier. But when you look at a game like Aston Villa away, when we were leading 1-0, and then he comes in, he gives away 3 balls, he gives away a dangerous free kick in the last second. I don't know, man. I don't know. But personally, I think it's time to go. I mean, he's one of the reasons. I don't know if it's because of Arteta not playing him or because he's not seen enough of him, but he's one of the reasons why Saka has had to play every single game, as Ray said earlier. He should be the one playing ahead of Saka.
That's not Pepe's fault. It's our.
It's not, but it's to be honest, every time I've seen him, I've not seen enough. Apart from the Wolves game when he came on and scored. Aston Villa away, Brighton at home. Every time he's come on, I've not seen enough.
But we
can say that about Nketiah, because I think, and me included, by the way, when Eddie was playing the odd few minutes here and there, I looked at this kid and thought, he's got great numbers from, and this is where we were saying about stats. You look at his England record, and I absolutely agree with you, Paulo. It's phenomenal. But then you look at him playing in those games where he was only getting 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and you think, he's showing us nothing. Like, why is he rated so highly?
And remember, I answered that. I was saying he was averaging a goal every 71 minutes. But yeah, if you only playing for 8 or 9 minutes, you're not going to see that goal because he's not on the pitch.
Yeah. I think
and that's where you look at Pepe and say, well, it's very difficult for a player to come in for 5 or 8 or 10, even 15 minutes when you haven't played a game of competitive football for 20 matches and be expected to set the world alight. It's very, very difficult.
And I want to bring you guys back to a situation which for those of you who follow my channel, I've already talked about this before. I want to bring you back to a situation just before Christmas, before Anthony Martial was sent away on loan, and he had a big problem not being picked by his manager. There was one game they were playing in the Champions League. They were losing 2-0. There was 5 minutes left in the game. And then he goes, okay, come on, you're on. Anthony Martial just went. And there was big news in the paper that he was subbed and he didn't go on and he refused to go on the pitch and whatever. That's what a manager's treatment to a player feels like. These players are human. They have emotions just like we do. And when you abstain from playing somebody of that quality, it gets to them. It hurts them. And with Pepe, the fact that he was having all these players come on, I used to be at the stadium and people would be like, why are all these players coming off the bench instead of Pepe? Like, you'd think if you were goal down and something weren't going wrong, he'd be the first player to come to, right? He weren't even the first option off the bench. And all this player has done for you in the little time you played him, like no manager has made this guy their first option. He started 16 games in the league the year before and scored 10 goals. It took Aubameyang 28 goals to score 10 goals the season before. All this guy does is provide. He provides for you. He's an impact player. And you then went and called him off the bench. In those little cameos, I remember, I think it was one of them at the Emirates, which it didn't go down very well, and he was awful when he came on. But and when I looked at that, I was like, do you blame him? Because up here, he's had enough. He's done. And I think him getting rid of his agent and everything was like, how have you allowed me to be in this situation where I'm being humiliated every week at Arsenal? How have you allowed me? So he's got rid of his agent. He's got a new guy in so that he can get him out of it. For me, that's the player. And you know what? Big respect to Pepe because you haven't aired your dirty laundry out on social media. Well done to you, my bro.
I think it was the Leeds game you're referencing where he was supposed to score from the halfway line. Well,
yeah.
Let's be realistic, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans rely on the rise, and they don't look at the stats. He doesn't pass the eye test. Martial didn't pass the eye test. The thing with Martial as well and with Pepe is it's a two-way street. You need your manager to believe in you, but you need to believe in your manager as well. If your manager doesn't give you enough, then you're not going to give enough back to him. It's a two-way street. And I think the relationship is just soured to the point of where he's got a new agent and he's looking around now.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens this summer transfer window. One last point, you guys mentioned Pepe getting a few minutes, Matt's mentioned, but someone like Smith Rowe during December, he was coming on for 5 minutes and scoring every single game. So it depends on how you look at it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to him this summer. Thank you, Ray, for coming on again. Awesome, Apollo. Thank you again.
Really enjoyed it talking
Cheers,
again.
guys.
Once a month. Check it out, people.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to Ray, Matt, and Apollo as well. And thank you for you guys tuning in to watch. Hit the like button and we'll definitely catch up with you guys on the next one.
Back five.
Excellent.